Hey, what's up, guys? While we wait for everybody to tune in, I just posted the message on Facebook about this being out. Uh, and so it's going up on YouTube, so I know you guys are going to be joining. So I guess a couple announcements before we get started. First thing, I'm going to be heading out of town next week. I'm actually going to be out kind of traveling for about 2 weeks or so. So I'm not going to be around to do all the videos. And so I'm really kind of working this weekend to do a bunch of dash cam testing, and I'd like to get the comparisons up by Monday is what I'm thinking. So the new Blackview, the 4K one, the DR900S against like everything else. And so that's one of the main things that I want to work on this weekend. And then I'd like to have it up by Monday so that when I head out on Tuesday, that will already be up there. I've already shot next week's 5-Minute Friday. That's already queued up. I want to get another one ready, that kind of stuff. So that's one big thing that I'm working on. Now, as far as the other dash cams that I want to compare it to, there's the new VFO A119 Pro. I put on my A119 the other day to compare as kind of like, this one shoots 1440p to compare it with the Blackview, which shoots at 4K. And this guy you can get for like $100, as opposed to the Blackview, we're looking at close to like $400 for the single channel. So I'm really curious to see how this compares. It doesn't have the parking mode functionality and that kind of stuff, but I'm really curious. So I've got that. Now I put this on my car, and literally the next day, the A119 Pro showed up. So I swapped it out, and I've got this installed in my car right now. This is just an empty box for a show. So I'm going to be comparing that one. It's kind of the A119, but with a new lens and a new sensor. So it should have better video quality. I saw one thing online where somebody said the A119 actually had better video quality. So I don't know if I should actually be running this one. So that's kind of something to test and compare. Speaking of dash cams, I also got this in the mail this morning, the new GoPro Hero 6. And this is something I'm really excited about. I got this because it also shoots 4K like the new Blackview, the DR900S. And so I'm really curious to see, okay, just to kind of get a benchmark with like the new GoPro, does the GoPro have better quality than the new Blackview? They both shoot 4K 30. Or maybe is the Blackview better? I don't know. The Blackview is better as a dedicated dash cam. It's got it can automatically start up and start recording when you start your car. GoPro, I don't think it has that capability yet. I don't know why they haven't added that, but it does shoot 4K, and it does have it's got some cool GPS related functionality that the Blackview doesn't have. And so I'm really curious to see, is just kind of like a benchmark 4K versus 4K, and just to see how they compare. Plus, it'll be a nice upgrade from my GoPro Hero 3 Plus, and these are what I've been using to shoot my in-car video. So I've got it set up on the windshield like this, it's kind of pointed towards me. And then I have like battery packs that you can put on the back and stuff, or LCDs, so I can see when I've got it pointed at a radar detector like this, so I can look, versus the new GoPro has an LCD on the back. So it'll make my life a little bit easier. But anyway, so that's going to be some upgrades for my in-car video. I've got some more dash cam comparison stuff. And yeah, so those are going to be some of the things coming up. So cool. I guess that's kind of some of the initial announcements. I'm going to be heading out of town for about 2 weeks on trips and stuff. But I'm getting videos queued up in the meantime. So with that said, let's hop on and take a look. Let's do some Q&As. So Derek Castro, is the Uniden R3 a great radar detector for long range? Yes, it's great for long range. It's also good for long range. No, yeah, of course, it's a great long range detector. And John Wynn, best long range detector. Yes, it's great for that. Kevin Cummins, still getting a lot of K-band false alerts on the R3. Yes, it's going to false to K-band just like every other radar detector on the market. Make sure you activate some of the filters, like the K-band filter, enable that. If you're getting traffic sensor filters, make sure you enable TSF, or traffic sensor rejection, whatever they call it on Uniden. If you're getting speed sign alerts, use your lockouts, use your load speed muting. If you're getting blind spot falses, those can be kind of tricky to filter out. Some like Hondas and GM vehicles, they will punch through the K-band filter. You could take a look at K-band narrow. I mean, there's a couple different things, but make sure you take a look at the different filtering options and use them as needed, especially when you know what it is that's causing your detector to false, and you can figure out what filters to use appropriately to filter those out. Take a look on my website for the R3 setup guide, and it goes over all the different options at your disposal, but those are the main things that you're going to want to take a look at to help deal with the false alerts. You can't quiet them down 100%, but you can definitely help filter many of them out. Oh, okay, here's a good question. Any cheap, good laser jammers? So this is something that I wanted to talk about. There is a new one that's in development that they're claiming should be able to jam the Dragon Eye like the ALP, and it should be costing less than the ALP. It's pretty interesting. There's going to be some testing going on over the next couple days and some initial results coming in. The people developing it, they haven't done any sort of consumer laser jammers before, but they do have history doing laser-based stuff for like the military and the DoD apparently, and now they're moving on to the consumer side. And they should be able to do a lot of the same things that the ALP can do, but they're going about it differently to avoid any sort of patent issues, and they're going to be available for a lower price than the ALP. So it's going to be kind of interesting. I don't want to hype it up too much or anything. We're still very much learning about it, and they're setting up distributors. They're setting up, they're working on firmware. What kind of features does it need? Auto JTK support, that kind of stuff. But I put a link in the video description where you can go check it out. And that'll give you some information on where all the discussion is going on regarding this new laser jammer. Again, it's still very new. They're still deciding on a name for it, and the price hasn't been set yet, all this kind of stuff. But it looks like it should be a very capable jammer, assuming it performs as they're claiming, and we'll find out soon. But yeah, so that's kind of one to keep an eye on. And so we may actually have a new laser jammer. Kind of best case scenario is it'll be kind of like the Uniden, where it showed up and we're like, wow, this is an amazing product for a much lower price. That's interesting. Kind of like how HDTVs used to be really expensive and they've come down in price. Maybe we'll see something similar on the laser jammer side with more competition coming out. So that's kind of something to keep an eye out on. And as I get more information, I'll definitely be sharing that with you guys. So yeah. Why does my R3 laser go off so much and randomly? Usually it has to do with a cell phone. These things sometimes have like IR transmitters on the front to maybe scan your face, or like different light sensors and stuff. These can sometimes cause false alerts. Sometimes there are weird unexplained things either with the sun, or we're not sure why it goes off. It doesn't happen to me, so I haven't been able to troubleshoot it, but I know some other people experience laser false alerts. Typically it comes from your cell phone, so make sure the detector can't see the phone. But I mean, I guess you could resort to turning off laser and just relying on your jammers. The R3's laser sensitivity isn't that great in the first place. But yeah, it's kind of an issue. Some people do experience laser falsing. Not exactly sure why, but typically it's from the phone. Let's see. Will you ever start doing videos about other types of electronics by Ian Oliver? Like what? I've kind of expanded from just radar detectors and laser jammers also to dash cams, but I don't want to like go out too far. I really want to keep this channel focused on this stuff. From time to time, like I used to do reviews of other things like battery packs and voltage converters and all that stuff. And I had a channel for that, but I never really got too into it. And this takes so much time already to focus on the radar detectors and countermeasures that I don't have a lot of time to do like other stuff as well. And so I kind of stay focused and specialized on my niche. And yeah, so that's kind of my thought process on that. I don't really have, I mean, I'm already so busy with this that it's hard to like expand to something else, Let's see, Samuel Bonorden. Hopefully I said that right. Since I don't have any tint on the top of my windshield, is it okay that I have my V1 mounted above the rearview mirror, or should it be lower? I have a video on this that you can watch it. Typically, it's going to be fine. With most tints, there's no issue. If it's a metallic-based tint, it will actually block the radar signal and interfere. Because it's blocking light, it will actually cut down on the laser light that's coming through for the V1, so your sensitivity will go down. A lot of people like to run it just under the tint to make sure that it can see through, but most tint is going to be just fine. Again, watch my video on kind of taking a radar detector. This is a dash cam, but radar, if here's your tint, here's your radar detector, you can test it behind the tint or just below the tint and see if that makes a difference in terms of sensitivity. But generally speaking, it's fine. Let's see. By Scott. Is the R3 completely radar detector proof? Pretty much, yeah. I've got videos on that too. Take a look at R3 versus Spectre. I think the maximum detection range is like 5 or 6 feet, and only if it's straight a line. So you pretty much have to like crawl on the roof of the car with the Spectre in order to get any sort of detection. But in practice, it's not going to be detectable by an officer driving past you or anything like that. So technically it's detectable, but practically speaking, bless you, realistically, you're just fine. No problem. Napster 6. Smartphones use a small pair of IR lights for distance measurement sensors to tell when your phone is pressed against your head. Yes, exactly. There you go. That's a good example. So when you're talking, you don't press the phone buttons on the screen. So, it wakes up, put it up to your ear, the screen goes off, that kind of stuff to save battery, or so you don't press the button. So there are sensors, and yes, those can trigger radar detectors. That happens. Let's see. Thomas Mick, can you talk on why you're drawn towards radar detection tech besides avoiding a speeding ticket? I think it's fun. Everybody always thinks, well, not everybody, people are like, oh, you must be an evil speeder trying to break the law. And like, you can get into all the discussion about revenue generation and how it's more for profit than safety, and the engineering and speed limit designs of the roads and how they're artificially kept low. We can get into all that discussion. for me, I just love the game. I love learning. I love that. For me, like just seeing how energy works and radar waves propagate through space and how they're affected by reflections and terrain and all this stuff. For me, it's like I get to see this whole invisible world of radar waves traveling through space. And I mean, my background is engineering and RF and that kind of stuff. And I always love that in general. So that part of it's a lot of fun. I also really like the fact that for me personally, this feels really rewarding to be able to offer something that isn't really covered to this extent. And so I feel like I can make a difference. And this feels really valuable to offer this because this isn't really available. I mean, it's why I got started, is because I wanted to find this out and I couldn't find really good resources on all this kind of stuff. And so I love learning about it and discovering new things, and the learning process is a lot of fun to me. And then when I'm able to turn around and share that to you guys and it benefits you, it feels really personally rewarding and satisfying. And so it's great for you. It's great for me. It's really fulfilling. I mean, there's just a ton of reasons that I love it. And so, yeah, that's kind of why I got into all this. Let's see. I remember hearing that VOFO was working on a 2-channel dash cam, but I haven't heard much about it recently. Is that still in the works? I think so. Blaze 6 Colts. Yeah, I believe that's still in the works. I haven't really kept up as much with the VFO 2-channel stuff. I'm not totally sure, but I think they are. Yeah. Let's see. Christopher Cavallari. Actually, let's do Dwight Green. On the R1, is there an advantage to update from 1.30 to 1.31 other than font size? I don't remember. That might have been the KA ghosting fix. I don't remember. Watch my video on 1.31. It goes over the updates, but I don't remember exactly what the updates were off the top of my head. So take a look. Christopher Cavallari, would it be possible to install 2 blend mounts on a typical mirror, one for the radar detector and another for a dash cam? Not really. No, just one. Dash cams, I mean, you can just put that right on your windshield. It's typically not a big deal. I would recommend doing that. 2 blend mounts wouldn't really work that well. They would kind of bang into each other and stuff, and they wouldn't be straight. So just 1 blend mount. Let's see. Bosley Beats. I have an Escort Max 2, and despite turning it off, the overspeed alert, it still alerts. Is this a faulty device? That's weird. I haven't heard of that one. If you set it to off, it shouldn't give you overspeed alerts. That's weird. I'm not totally sure. I mean, I always turn that feature off, and I've never had it go off otherwise, so I'm not totally sure. Question for you guys. How is the audio here? I've got my mic set up just off camera here, and there's like a little volume dial on the bottom, and I've got like a sound indicator here at the bottom on the screen for me, but it looks like the volume level is pretty low. It doesn't go to like louder things. So anyway, okay, bullet dodging, audio is fine. Good. Sounds good to me. Thanks. Great. Okay, good. Just wanted to check that. Hey, Vortex, any experience with the Escort Smart Radar? I just picked one up and would like to know how it may hold up. So the Smart Radar, discontinued. Escort doesn't make it anymore. It wasn't really that popular. It was a cool idea. It was a little box with no display on it, and you hook it up to your phone. You've got one. The idea was apparently people really wanted the display, and they didn't use the Escort Live stuff that much, and it wasn't that popular. It's performance-wise, it's an M4, so it's like your 9500iX, your RX65. It's an older platform that Escort has reused for many, many, many different detectors. It doesn't have the modern filtering. It doesn't have crazy long-range performance, but it does kind of have that cool stealth capability, not RDD immune, but just visually, the little box up by your rearview mirror. It's fine. It's not great. It's not going to give you great performance. It doesn't have great filtering. I'm not sure if it has lockouts. It may with Escort Live. That's probably the way they approached it. But yeah, it's okay, I guess. Not great. Let's see. With a blend mount and no visible wires, I can't begin to justify the much higher cost for any of the remote units you've tested. Yeah, I mean, remotes are not cost effective. They're great for what they are, but if you want the best bang for the buck, clearly a windshield mount is the way to go. You don't go for a remote because you're trying to like save cash or anything, to be honest. They have their advantages too, better integration and stuff, but yeah, you definitely do pay more for that. Let's see, Smokin' 316. I got my LRD 950, did the update to the DFR7, works great. Awesome, good, glad to hear that. How does the Uniden R3 work in Maryland by Mr. Cubano? Works well. The only potential issue in Maryland is they use this automated photo radar, or actually not photo radar, photo LiDAR called the Poliscan. It is it's laser that sweeps across the road and sends people speeding tickets. You can actually use a radar detector to help avoid speeding tickets from that. And the way that it works is because the laser is sweeping across the road with a detector that's sensitive to laser, you can actually pick it up ahead of time and get the warning before you're in the kill zone. And it kind of goes against the typical rule of thumb of you can't use a radar detector to help against a laser save. That's kind of one exception to the rule. And so there's people in Maryland who say, if I'm not running laser jammers, I want to run a radar detector. You can actually get away if you use something like maybe an Escort or a Valentine that has better laser sensitivity than the R3. And that could be a benefit for you living in Maryland. And so, yes, it's going to be great for radar, but that's something to keep in mind. Personally, jammers, great. That kind of takes care of it. But if you're not running jammers, that might be something to consider too. So, oh yeah, go buddy. I also have let's see, Derek, I have a Passport X70. Can you tell me a couple pros and cons? Yeah, M4, like the smart radar that we talked about, they did add BSRDR, I believe, so it's got better performance. Doesn't have the greatest filtering, but inexpensive. I mean, it's fine. There's better detectors for the money nowadays. The Unidens are kind of the typical go-to ones. It's the same as the Passport. Actually, no, the X70 doesn't have Bluetooth, I believe. Is that right? I think the Passport does. The X70 does not. So no lockouts, I guess. That's kind of a downside. Not the greatest for the city then. No low-speed muting. So, yeah. W. Chris Bell, will you be doing a comparison of the new Blackview 900 versus the 800 Pro? Yes, that's actually what I'm working on this weekend. Drove around last night. I finally got some nighttime footage. Driving around yesterday. I'm going to do some more driving today. So I'm basically collecting footage this weekend. I'm heading out of town on Tuesday, and so on Monday, I want to spend time kind of reviewing all the footage, compiling some test footage and sample footage and comparisons with like freeze frame and zoom into the license plate and all that. So I'd like to post it on Monday. I've also got kind of some new things I mentioned earlier, the new VFO A119 Pro, the successor to the A119. So I'm going to be testing that. It's in my car. And I got the new GoPro, the 4K one. And so I've got a lot more comparison stuff. I'm running out of space in my windshield for all these dash cams. I've got 5, and now I want to add a GoPro as well. So plus a radar detector and a cell phone mount, like, got a lot of stuff up there. So yes, that's something that I'm working on. That's going to be coming up. Let's see. Planning to install the DR900S and thinking of adding another custom battery for the cam to save money. Will this interfere with the car battery charging system? No. I mean, you power your car, it charges the battery, and then when you turn off your car, the battery powers your dash cam. Works fine. I mean, even in my car with a bunch of stuff in there, no problems with the extra load and battery and dash cams and radar detectors and laser jammers and all that stuff. Even in my little Miata, it's just fine. So I'm not sure what you drive, but I'm sure you're good. Oh, this is an interesting one. Okay, let's get into some tech stuff. Good question. Manular 15. I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. What kind of additional engineering goes into making a detector truly stealth? Okay, this is fun. Now we're getting into like some tech stuff. Escort has a patent on this and how they've actually made their M3s stealth. So the Redline, the STIR Plus, the Magnum, the M3 platform. It's really interesting. It's patented, so other manufacturers may not be able to use these same techniques, but because there's a patent on their techniques, we can read about it and figure out exactly what they did. So actually, let's see. I'll be right back. VG2 and... All right, I got a VG2. I've got some props here. So we'll grab this, and then got so much stuff. Where's the Spectre? Okay. A little bit of a, not history lesson, but, oh, hey, thanks, Chris Bell. I appreciate it. So, old RDD, VG2. This was like one of the first gen ones. This was actually really easy to defeat because it really only scanned for like a small segment of frequencies. And so what most radar detector manufacturers did to make themselves immune to being detected by this is they just changed the local oscillator frequency to something that the VG2 isn't scanning for. And so they didn't add any sort of additional stealth technology. They just said, let's use a different frequency that the VG2 isn't scanning for. Boom, stealth, undetectable. Then the Spectre came out. We've got a couple. Whoa, I just knocked it. Somebody's getting excited here. I'm sorry. And my coffee's starting to kick in. I just finished the whole cup. So, this came out. There's been a couple generations of it. And this, they're like, hey, let's get around that trick and start sweeping for a whole wide variety of frequencies that a radar detector could be using for their LO, so that if a radar detector company decides to say, hey, let's just change frequencies, we're still scanning for it, so they can't get around it. And so radar detector manufacturers had to start doing something more sophisticated than just changing the LO frequency. And so what they've done with the M3 platform, there's a whole variety of stuff out there. There's things like adding some special rubber gasketing around the horn to prevent leakage out of the horn. The reason that they're detectable in the first place is you have the local oscillator inside, the part that's actually scanning and sweeping for different frequencies. Hey, thanks, Thomas. The part that's sweeping for different frequencies not only is detecting radar, but it also leaks. It has emissions that go back out of the horn. And these emissions are what a radar detector is picking up on. And so what they've had to do is minimize the emissions coming out of the shell of the detector, but primarily emissions coming back out of the horn. So there's all sorts of cool things like the microstrips. So you have the horn, and then you have kind of microstrips, little wires essentially, that feed into the electronics and the circuitry and the radar detector. They've done things like if you put an LNA, a low noise amplifier, between the horn and the local oscillator, the low noise amplifier, the chip that basically boosts the strength of the signal, that can also function as a one-way switch to prevent any signals from the local oscillator of leaking back out the horn. So that's one technique that you can use. And if you take a look at the test between the Redenso Pro and the Redenso Pro SE, that's a perfect example. That's the exact same detector, and the only difference is the fact that Pro SE has an LNA behind the horn. And you'll actually see the fact that the RPSE is much less detectable than the original Redenso Pro because of that LNA acting as a one-way switch and preventing leakage out of the horn. So that's one trick that you could use. Another thing that they've done is the microstrips themselves that connect between the horn, the antenna, and the local oscillator. That can actually function as an antenna itself. And actually the signals that are traveling through that wire, the microstrip, can actually start to propagate out of the horn that way, not from the horn, but the microstrips themselves actually function as an antenna. And so what they've done is they've actually designed the antenna itself to minimize any leakages, especially on the frequencies that are being transmitted that a Spectre would detect on. So there's all these cool little tricks like that to kind of minimize the chances of it being detected. There's all sorts of stuff. Those are some of the few off the top of my head. I believe there's a couple others. If you look around for like the Escort patent, it goes into more information. It's a really cool read. That's actually something I like to do sometimes in the free time. In my free time, I'll just sit around at night and read patents on how radar detectors work. It's pretty much smart people who've done cool stuff. They'll tell you exactly how things work, and it's an awesome way to learn. So if you guys are in like technical stuff, check out some patents. Those are great. Hey, thanks, Game Theory College Planners. I appreciate it. Let's see. Okay, so what is this about, Ariel? Shade King. That was, oh, hey, Albus. Hey, yeah. Here's my doggy. Say hi, Albus. Hi. He just came back from his walk. I always love sitting in my lap. Half the time when I'm sitting at home working on videos, he's just asleep in my lap. I'm sitting on the computer, and then he's right down here, and I'm just like petting him and stuff. So. Okay, cool. So anyway, I always love getting into the technical stuff. I know most people are just like, hey, what radar detector should I buy? And I'm more of like the engineer. I like all the tech stuff. So it's always fun getting into that. Anyway, let's see. Elvis is in the building. It's not Elvis, Albus, as in Albus Dumbledore. That's usually the thing when we say, his name is Albus. People are like, Elvis? We're like, no. So that actually comes up a lot. Let's see. Oh, here's an interesting one. Joe Hubbard. When I stop in a strip mall just short of a speed camera and a red light camera, my R3 keeps repeating a warning of a speed camera and red light camera over and over and over. Can I stop it? Yeah, so I experienced that too. That's a weird side effect of the fact that if you're right on the edge of a red light camera alert, I think the radius is like 300 meters or something, whatever it is, like 900 something feet. If you're right on the edge, there could be a little bit of GPS drift when you're stationary, but it actually thinks you're moving a little bit. And you can kind of be going in and out of that perimeter, the radius of like that alert. And that's just kind of an annoying thing. And so sometimes, yeah, you'll try to like mute the alert and it goes away and then it comes back and it keeps re-alerting. That's one annoying thing. I've contacted Uniden about that as well. Messaged them a couple months ago to see if they could do something to help avoid that. But yeah, that is kind of one weird annoyance that you'll find sometimes with the R3 and the red light camera alerts. Let's see. Okay. Hey, Vortex, thanks to you, my Uniden R3 is on the way. Congratulations. I feel like that's always one of the main topics of conversation. R3. Okay, bye. So I live in Virginia and need to mount the radar detector above the mirror to hide it more. Any tips on mounting to the black dots, aka the frit? Yes, actually, one really easy trick. Typically, suction cups do not attach very easily to them, but if you get a clear piece of tape or something, put like mailing tape over the dots to make like a smooth surface, and then you can attach your radar detector to the tape, and it should stick better. I believe I've seen somebody do that. I haven't tried it myself, but I think that should be an option for you to help out. Another option that I've seen is on eBay. They sell these like mounts for like $5-10 or something. It's a piece of metal basically with like a mount attached to it, a plate and a little hook for the detector to connect to, and then it has like a sticky backing, like 3M double stick tape, and you can stick it right to your windshield, and that's another option as well to get it to stick. So take a look at that. Try the mailing thing because it's free and that'll work with your existing thing. If it doesn't work, hop on eBay and search for like R3 windshield mount and you'll find it for like $10 or something. It's really cheap. You can try that. Hey, what's up, Rushmatic? Whoa1, Vortex, my favorite YouTube channel. Oh, thank you. Brad, my A119 has a high pitch on the sound for a couple of days at the same time. You ever tried a different storage card? Yeah, I get that sometimes with dash cams. There's this high pitched sound. I'm not sure why, but I've seen that from time to time. I'm not totally sure why it does that. I remember talking to one manufacturer and they said it was the USB cable. Try a different power source. Sometimes there could be some issues with the power itself. So take a look at that and that could be an option. But otherwise, yeah, I guess try different memory cards, try varying different things. Maybe ask the manufacturer if that's a common thing, or yeah, maybe case by case on different dash cams, you know. Samuel Dawson, on hot days, my detector falls down. How can I stop it from falling? So what you're going to want to do is build an anti-gravity chamber in your car. And no kidding. That happens. So usually it's suction cups fail in the sun, radar detector falls. I see that all the time. I have that happen too. A lot of times I come back and I've got a radar detector hanging off of the roof line of my car just from the hardwire cable. You know, that actually happens. So a couple things. First of all, make sure your windshield is clean. Make sure these suction cups are clean. If the suction cups are kind of flat, then they're not going to be able to like pull back into this cone shape and create that vacuum, you know, to really stick to the windshield well. So make sure the suction cups are kind of cone shaped and not worn out and flat. You can either maybe get new suction cups, or one trick that people do is put it in hot water for a little while. I think it's like 5 minutes or something, and that'll help restore the shape. There's other things too, like if you want to get a blend mount, you won't have that issue anymore. It'll just be attached to your rearview mirror. Yeah, there's different options, but start with that before you start going into other options that cost you money. So those are a couple free things you could try. Javier, use a blend mount, yeah. Trenton Garcia, is a stealth detector important to have? Mainly a California driver, but also Arizona, Nevada, and Utah. Not really. It's mainly for people if you're in areas and you don't want to be detected. This isn't kind of interesting. I've heard of stories in Texas of officers using Spectres. What they'll do is, you know, they'll use them for like truckers and stuff to find truckers who are running radar detectors. They also will try combining a Spectre with Instant On and saying, hey, let's run this, maybe to try to detect radar detector users. And so I'll have my radar gun off. I'll wait till the radar detector gets detected and then bam, blast them with Instant On. I can catch radar detector users who otherwise I'd be missing. So that's something that I've heard of stories of officers doing that. But with a lot of detectors nowadays that are stealth, that doesn't really work, but that's something that'll work on, I mean, well, some detectors like the Max 360 are detectable, so it would work. But yeah, there are some instances where even if they're legal, it's helpful. Let's see. Functional Doc, what type of engineer are you? My background is electrical and computer engineering. Processor design, I like the RF stuff. I worked with fiber optics, that kind of stuff. So technical, electrical engineering, computer engineering in general. And now I do this. And I get to have a lot more fun than sitting in a lab and building circuits and stuff. So it's nice. I don't actually build the circuitry anymore, but because I have the technical background, I can understand a lot of it. To at least take a look at it and be like, oh, okay, I get what I'm looking at. I get the idea of what's going on here. I honestly couldn't build that stuff myself anymore. I've forgotten almost all that, but at least I have enough of the background and understanding to get the gist of what's going on, you know? So it's been pretty helpful in that regard. Sargon Smith, can you explain the air patrol on the Escort? Yeah, sure. So air patrol, there's places where they do aircraft enforcement, where officers will fly around with a helicopter or a plane and look for speeders down on the highway. And they can measure speed with either a stopwatch or with a camera that tracks the vehicle and displays the speed on screen. Your radar detector will not give you any alert because they're not using radar. Your laser jammer will not give you any alert. One option that you could do is Escort Live has Air Patrol, where it's basically marked and alerting you to known locations where aircraft enforcement often happens. It won't tell you if it's actively in use now, but it's just letting you know, hey, you're in an area where aircraft enforcement occurs. There's other techniques you can do, like running Waze on your phone, because what they do is when they see a speeder, they'll radio down to a group of chase cars down ahead, and they say, hey, there's a black SUV coming. It's in lane 1. It's doing 85 miles an hour. And there'll be a group of chase cars to go and pull over that vehicle. And so on Waze, you can take a look and see if there's a bunch of cops marked way up ahead. You may need a couple miles of warning. In Waze, I think they backed it down to like a quarter mile or a half mile alerting, so you'll actually have to pay attention. But that's a good option. Another thing, you can police scanners. You can even listen to their radio transmissions if you're into that. There's videos of that if you want to check out people listening in that way. But yeah, Escort Live is one way for you to get the alerts to Air Patrol when it's being in use for aircraft enforcement. Let's see. Any news on the Whistlers? No, Shade King. The only news I've heard is the fact that they decided to change names of the CR93. They're calling it like the CR97 or something. I think the Pro 710 and Pro 75 is what they were going to call it originally. And then they changed names back to the Pro series. And so that's all I've heard. I haven't gotten any emails from Mike B or any status updates. So really no updates from the Whistler yet. I'm still just kind of waiting to hear more. So yeah. Let's see. Dan I, how long do you think the V1 will last? That's an interesting question. Man, so there's patents for the V1 for new displays and hardware platform and better performance and new sweeping algorithms and all this kind of stuff. But some of the patents have gotten denied. They're waiting on approval. It's taking a while for all that to come through. And they're trying to develop new stuff, but then the patent gets denied, so they have to change something. And so we've been sitting here for years waiting for an update. We're not seeing it. So we're wondering, is Mike V getting close to retirement? That's a common idea. Do they just not really care anymore? I mean, they do, clearly. Are they just happy still selling the V1 the way it is? So it doesn't seem like they're super focused on trying to get this going, but we're all still waiting, and your guess is as good as mine as far as when this is going to come out. So, yeah. Functional Doc, have you ever thought of asking Mike V for an interview? Actually, yeah. I emailed Valentine like a month or two ago. I didn't hear back, but I emailed him saying, hey, it'd be fun to talk to you. I don't know, maybe like do a factory tour or an interview or something. Like, I thought that would be cool, but I never heard back. So, womp womp. But yeah, that would be a fun idea. Let's see. XT8 Dob. I'm debating on whether to enable X-Band while I'm here in Baton Rouge. I know Hidden Cam came across some X-Band there. Just saw Escort Live reported X yesterday on I-10. Interesting. If you're running a dash cam, hopefully you can capture something if you get lucky and see it. Post it on RDF. It's kind of cool just to see X-Band encounters just because how rare they are. So maybe you'll see one. That'll be good. Oh, you have a dash cam. Good. Yeah. So hopefully you'll get lucky and you'll see something. X-Band alerts, sometimes they could be false alerts just because, at least for me, we don't have X-Band up here. So whenever I see an X-Band alert on Escort Live, I figure it's somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. And they saw an X-Band alert and hit report. And so I know they're false is just because they're not used out there. And so that's my first thought. Yeah, TUM and WK. School buses use X-Band now. They do. And so there are going to be sources of false alerts. And so I've always written them off as falses. And I even go into the app and say, don't even show me X-Band alerts. But if you've got Escort Live and you know that it could be legitimate, maybe you could do a little bit of radar hunting and go down there and see if you'll get lucky and come across that officer running X-Band. That could be cool. I'll do that sometimes for videos. And I'm like, oh, there's just something spotted 5 miles away from me on the highway. And I'll hop in the car and go drive and hopefully get a cool encounter to share with you guys or something. So that can be something kind of fun. Let's see, radio towers and some stores set them off. Yeah, there's a couple sources of X-Band. Man, I've actually forgotten most of the stuff just because I've run it with X-Band off for so long. I don't even know how many X-Band door openers there are around, but yeah. Let's see. When was the last time you got pulled over for speeding? Years ago? I was road tripping around the country. I was in Arizona and I just gotten off the highway and I was still in like highway mode. And I guess I didn't slow down enough back down to city speeds. And so cop pulled me over. I think I got a ticket. That was like 2010. It was before I got into countermeasures. I've never gotten a ticket with countermeasures, knock on wood. But yeah, so far so good. Yeah, I guess it would be kind of embarrassing if I did, I suppose. But it can happen. I mean, I'm by no means immune to tickets. I mean, you can have all the greatest countermeasures in the world and you can definitely still get a ticket. You can't make yourself immune to them other than just maybe not driving or something, but you can definitely help maybe swing the odds in your favor. So countermeasures help, but they're not going to make you immune to tickets. And I'm certainly not immune to not getting them or immune to getting them. Yeah, double negative. So yeah, let's see. Can't get used to the silence of my unit and caught myself wanting my radar detector to go off. Guess it's a good thing. Yeah, I know. That's the main thing I use my radar detectors for these days is like just detecting when there's false alerts. I mean, I don't actually see that much legitimate radar. And so, the filtering is getting better. So I'm not seeing even as many false alerts. So I'm mostly just like, how well does it filter out blind spot falses? How do the lockouts work? I'm mainly focused on that. You guys, if you see a lot of enforcement, I don't know. I guess the grass is always greener. I wish I had more just so I could have more videos and encounters to share with you guys and test out my equipment and not just sitting around playing with radar guns and stuff. I could actually test it on the road, but yeah. Hey, what's up, Chris? Good to see you. So yeah, cool. All right. So as far as timing, I'll probably hang out for another maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes, things like that. And then I'm going to go hang out with some friends, go to a winery. That should be fun. So plus it's a nice, beautiful day here. So anyway, yeah, we'll just keep hanging out. Shade King, any updates from the big guys, Escort, Redenso, etc.? Not really. Nothing that we haven't already talked about. I guess one thing is, how the Max 360 and the Max 360C, they can lock up detecting a signal. I was shooting a video yesterday with the new GT360, the one that's kind of like a Max 360, but the Beltronics, and it locked up on me on K-band. I was sitting here shooting, or I was like demonstrating the audio tones or something, and I was hitting it with K-band, and it locked up while I was shooting the video, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So clearly they reuse the same code that you've got on the Max 360 and the Max 360C, and the new GT360 is also locking up. So hopefully Escort can fix the firmware. This is actually probably why the Max and the Max 2 still haven't gotten the firmware update for better BSN filtering, is because they're still trying to fix the lockup issue. XTW, yeah, my Max 360 hasn't locked up yet. Not everybody's experiencing it. It seems like after a little while, they're going to happen. But yeah, so anyways, that happens. That was kind of a fun thing. That video, I've got it scheduled to be posted, I think, next week or something. If you want to watch a setup video on the GT360, that'll be up there. At the end, there's a fun tidbit. You'll actually see the lockup. I'll show you. So like I finished the video and then it's kind of like a blooper at the end. So if you're watching that video, if you don't want to watch the whole video, skip to the very end. You'll actually see the lockup. So fun tip for you. Quick question. Are laser jammers effective in poor weather? Not sure if the rain would cause light to scatter in some negative way. I believe they work. You won't see officers running laser as much in the rain in poor weather just because, I mean, they pull cars over in the rain and they're going to have to stand in the rain and all this kind of stuff. It does happen from time to time. I mean, I live in Seattle and I see, enforcement in the rain too, but it can happen and the jammers can still work. I mean, there's things that they'll need to do, like the laser guns actually have a poor weather mode because, yes, the rain can interfere with the laser gun. The droplets, especially at close range when they're a little bit bigger, they can reflect back into the laser gun and cause incorrect readings. And so laser guns typically have a poor weather mode to ignore any sort of return readings inside of a close distance, maybe 250 feet or 100 feet or whatever, depending on the gun. The idea is it ignores, see a Shade King, it ignores any sort of close returns to help avoid any sort of issues that would arise when shooting in poor weather, like rain or snow. And so there's options for laser guns. And then also, to answer your question, functional dot, They can also shoot through windows with this feature enabled. It definitely helps. And so, yes, they can shoot through windows. They don't have to pull the window down. It helps just to make it a little bit easier for the gun to work, but they don't have to necessarily do that. So, yes, they can shoot in the rain. And yes, to answer your question, Chris, your laser jammers can work in the rain. One thing to keep an eye out for is if you've got snow and there's grime on the road, if that physically starts to build up on your laser jammer heads, it can physically start to block the laser sensors to detect the signal or the laser transmitters to fire back. And so I know people up in Canada, I know you're up in Canada, experience this sometimes. You want to make sure that your sensors themselves are clean so that they can see the signal and they're able to retransmit back. And so maybe that would be something to keep an eye on if you're in an area with a lot of salt and grime or whatever on the road, you know? Yeah. I ride my motorcycle. What are my options for radar? Radar detector. There are some motorcycle specific ones, Record 427. I haven't tested them. I get this question from time to time. Hey, what about a motorcycle? I'm not a good person to ask about motorcycles because there are different options for how do you press the buttons when you're riding, or how do you hear the alerts piped into your headset, or what about waterproofing with the radar detector, or how do you see the alerts? Do you want a visual light that's blinking? Or, I mean, all these kind of things that are more specific to motorcycle users. And so if you search on RDF, there's some good information about motorcycle stuff. There is one radar detector that's specifically designed for motorcycles. It's designed by like Adaptive TPX, something like that. They make one that's specifically designed for radar detector or for motorcycle users. And I talked to them, I emailed them. I was like, hey, you know, I'm thinking about reviewing this one. I get a lot of questions. It would be something interesting to compare, to test, something I haven't done. And we got to talking and they started pointing out all the unique things that are really helpful for motorcycle users that I wouldn't be able to test and I wouldn't really appreciate because I drive in a car. And so I could test it and just do some long range testing and see how the BSM filtering works and does it have lockouts and all this kind of stuff. You know, I could do that kind of stuff, but a lot of the unique things for motorcycle users, I wouldn't really have a good way to test or even an appreciation for. I wouldn't recognize it. And so I'm not a good person to test motorcycle stuff, but there's some good discussions on RDF you can check out with a lot of information about that. So yeah. Let's see. When are you going to do a video for the JBV1 complete setup? Chad O. Probably not for a while. That app is still so much in active development that the app is constantly changing and there's new features being added. And I mean, if I didn't really have anything else going on, I would be more involved with paying attention to that and all that. I played with it for a little while. It was a really cool app. I like it, but there's still so much changing that I could do a setup video or something and it would be out of date within like weeks. So I'm kind of waiting for things to stabilize and settle down a bit, but that's the reason that I've kind of been holding off on it and focusing more on other stuff that, yeah. Can high pressure drive-through car washes cause damage to the laser heads or remote radars? I don't think I've heard of any issues. I mean, they are designed to be waterproof. I don't think I've heard of any issues with that. You should be okay. Yeah. Maybe just don't like shoot directly at the laser jammer head with the water stuff. But I mean, usually it's just a spray. It's not like a laser shooting at it or something. Bill, any new laser jammer is going to be coming out soon? Yes, I'm glad you asked. Take a look in the video description. There's a link to one new one that's going to be coming out soon. Oh, here we go. BRD has said that pressure washes in the ALP heads don't get along very well. Okay, cool. There you go. So maybe something to keep an eye out for. Take a look on RDF. Maybe search around for other people's discussions. There might be some issues with water intrusion or something. Take a look at that to get more information. Thank you, Mia is my name. So there's a new laser jammer that's currently under development. It's, from what they're saying, it should be able to jam the Dragon Eye and all this kind of stuff, and it should cost less than the ALP. It's going to be tested over the next couple days, and there's going to be some videos and information coming out. It supports up to 5 heads. Some really interesting stuff there. We're still learning about it, and they're still setting up distributors and all this kind of stuff. But if it performs the way it's claimed, it could be a very interesting laser jammer and a very capable one, less expensive than the ALP. But we're going to have to see what it's actually like in practice, you know? The test results, the Texas Countermeasure Testing Group, actually, they're going to be testing it. Raltech is getting involved. They do some really good laser testing as well. So a lot of the big people are getting involved with this one, and this is going to be pretty interesting. So link in the video description. Take a look at that. You can read up on some of the information that's available publicly. There is more discussion that's being done privately, but you can take a look at the public stuff. and that one's looking really interesting. So I'll have more information. I'm going to be getting one to test and blah, blah, blah. So I'll have information, but that's not for a few weeks / months to really get into all that. But there's going to be some information coming out fairly soon about that. So keep an eye on RDF. Let's see. Darcy, do you know if the settings for R3 would be different if you're in Canada? Maybe, depending on what radar guns are in use there. Maybe there's an RDF GS for Canada. If you search on RDF, the radar detector forum, there is a section where people are discussing what radar guns are in use. So you could get into different things as far as segmentation, but there's not a whole ton that's really crazy different with Canada. So generally speaking, the settings that we have for the US, they're going to be the same that what you'll see in Canada. Doesn't detect the MRCD yet. That's something to be aware of if you are in Alberta. I think it's like Quebec has it too, and Prince Edward Island or something. I'd have to double check the Canadian provinces, but it doesn't support that yet, but that's coming. So something to be aware of. Brad, is this your primary focus now? How can we help you pay your bills? Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, this is my primary focus. It wasn't originally the idea. I got into this and I was like, I'm really enjoying this. This is fun. This is helpful and beneficial. And this is great. And it became a full-time thing, but not a full-time income, And I'm like, well, if I'm going to be able to do this in any sort of sustainable way, and I'm going to devote this much time to it, because yes, I do this constantly. This is my full-time thing now. It also has to pay the bills, So whenever I recommend a product, if you look in the video description, for example, there's links to different things. Those are affiliate links, and I make a percentage when you actually purchase through those links. It doesn't cost you anything, and it definitely supports me. If you want to contribute more directly, you can support me on Patreon. Yeah, exactly. Axelrod21. You can support me on Patreon and contribute a certain amount every month, $5, $10, $20, $50 a month, whatever you like, $1 a month, totally up to you. And that goes directly to me, and it really helps. YouTube also has a thing here. I can see the super chat option. You can super chat. I guess the idea is you can pay some amount of money, and it shows up on the screen on my end, and it's super bright. And I guess it's designed for when you get super busy, just to make sure that I see your question, and then I'll of course focus on that. And then it's also a way to support me too. It's just a way of saying thank you. So that's an option too. You can do the super chat thing, or if you want to do something more consistent over time, you can sign up on Patreon, and there's different perks that are available at different tiers too. So you can take a look at that as well. But thank you. Let's see. Canada, if you get pulled over and they find it, you're going to jail, depending on the province. Radar detectors are legal in British Columbia, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. They're not in the other provinces. And yes, they do confiscate and that kind of stuff. It really depends on where you go, but I don't think they take you to prison. Yeah, I hear all sorts of stuff. Maybe good to do a little bit of research on the local laws and stuff. I'm not a lawyer. Do your research, but I usually hear all this stuff about how laser jammers are felonies and all this crazy stuff. And I'm like, man, there's a lot of interesting stuff on the internet. So yeah. Let's see. Fryaman, I have an older V1, 3.858. Should I trade it in for new upgraded software V1 or sell and get an R3? If you really like the arrows, take a look at the updated V1. I mean, you're going to get the ability to pair it with your phone, which is huge. 3.892 or newer has this. And you'll get it if you upgrade your V1. To pair it with your phone, you can get now GPS lockouts, which are incredibly helpful. You can get into custom sweeps for better performance. If you update 3.894 or newer, and again, you'll get it. Much better BSM filtering on K-band. And so it's going to be a pretty huge update for you. I would recommend it. I updated my V1 to get the new filtering, even though I had all the Bluetooth stuff, and it made a pretty big difference. And so if you like the arrows and you're really happy with the V1 platform, I say keep it, by all means. It's a great detector. I love mine. I don't think I'll ever sell it. I'm waiting for the new one, of course, and I'll buy it instantly as soon as it's available. But yeah, it's a great detector. If you want longer range and you want GPS built in and not have to deal with your phone and stuff, get the R3. You'll lose the arrows, of course, but you'll get better performance. So it kind of comes down to you're familiar with your V1. Do you really like the arrows and you can't live without them? Or do you find situations where it's lacking in range, and you're like, man, I really need more range. If that's a situation, you could do some improvements with custom sweeps, but really I think the R3 would be the answer. So maybe consider phone tethering, that kind of stuff. Decal FX, Go WFO. Will you be doing a full DR900S review? Yes. So definitely that's been a super hot topic. I've been excited about that ever since I heard about it at CES or SEMA or whenever it was. And it is one of the most commonly searched for terms that people actually find my website on, believe it or not. I guess there's not a whole ton of DR900S info, but yeah, so I'm constantly testing it. I was driving yesterday to get some nighttime footage. I've got new dash cams. I mentioned this earlier. I got some new dash cams in the mail to compare it to. So there's a ton that I'm doing with it right now. I'm pretty familiar with the the dash cam and all the features and stuff. There's a couple differences over the DR750S. So that's going to make it easier for me to review it. Just to be like, well, if you're familiar with the DR750S, here's all the improvements. Wider lens, better Wi-Fi, 4K, ability to downsize the video for streaming, H.265. Like, I'm going to go over the differences, but yes, that is definitely something I'm planning on doing. It will take time to go over it. Again, timing-wise, I'm going to be heading out of town next week. I'll be traveling for about 2 weeks. And so I want to get some sample footage up by Monday is what I'm planning. So I'll be doing some editing and stuff Monday. I'd like to get it posted up Monday. And then full review will have to come later, but more sample footage to really see what the quality is like compared to everything else. That should be coming sooner. Let's see. Is the ALP Axelrod 21? Is the ALP going to make a new model with more heads and radar support with like 8 ports? I doubt it. They're trying to like build accessories onto the existing platform instead of coming out with an all new system. There's not a lot of situations where you would need 8 heads. I mean, they already support 3 heads per side, and there's not many situations where that's insufficient. So there's not really a reason to redesign it to support more heads. You know, if they're going to redesign it, I would love to see them add things like put Bluetooth built into it, or add a freaking headphone jack so you could plug in a speaker without having to like use the $100 hi-fi module, and then you can run into conflicts with Bluetooth. Like, I would want them to see to fix that kind of stuff, you know. But whatever. The new, what's it called? The new laser jammer that should be coming out. I believe it has Bluetooth coming or built in. That should be nice. So, yeah. Sargon Smith, you ever thought about comparing radar systems that boats into car systems? Systems that boats into car systems? Radar systems and boats? Is that what you're asking? I'm not sure. Maybe built into car systems. I've done a video recently talking about the installed ones: Stinger VIP, the NetRadar DSP, Redenso RCM, and Escort Max CI. I did a video comparing those maybe a few weeks ago. You can take a look at that on my channel if that's what you're referring to. As far as boats, I'm not sure. Spoon Al or AI, Redenso Pro M testing. This weekend, hey, me is my name. He's on here as well. Tomorrow, actually. The weather's looking pretty good so far, so assuming it holds up. I'd like to go out tomorrow and do some Spectre testing. I've got the Spectre here. I've got the Pro M actually sitting over on my desk. I'd like to go out and do some testing, not necessarily the long range testing. There's been some of that stuff done, but I really want to do some Spectre testing with that. The Max 360C, the GT 360, and that like cheap ass Batman detector. I want to test that thing too. So it'll be more like RDD testing. Long range stuff, there's some of that on RDF. You can already check that out. So that'll be coming out too. RDFGS, yeah, good question. I really wish that would get fixed. XYD, the guy who runs all the administrative technical stuff, he's been busy with like VPN stuff, and he had some stuff going on. So I really wish it would come back up. But again, thank you to Me Is My Name for that backup file, basically exporting it as like an Excel spreadsheet so you can take a look at that. So that information is available. It's just not able to be updated and presented in this traditional way. So hopefully that'll get done because that's such a fantastic resource. But yeah, we're waiting on that. So Donkey Wab, can I get a shout out to Ricardo, who is 30? Happy birthday, Ricardo. That's awesome. Very cool. It would be nice if ALP added a dedicated display like Redenso. Yes, so I agree. That would be fantastic. It's been requested a couple times. BRD is usually like, it's a lower priority, and he brushes it off, and he's focusing on other things. And so it's a request, but don't hold your breath, perhaps. So, yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I think I am going to head out. I'm going to go meet up with some friends. Should be a good day. Still got my dog here. He's hanging out on my lap. So awesome. Oh, just signed up for Patreon. Thank you, Brad. I appreciate it. Okay, cool. So I am off. It would be great. Hang out with some friends. Got to grab all my dash cam memory cards, load it up. It's my process now. I get in the car. I've got 5 memory cards to put in my dash cams, and now I've got a 6th GoPro to put on my windshield. So getting in and out of the car now is a process to pull all the memory cards out and put them all back in. And sometimes the cards go in this way. Sometimes they go in this way. And so I get it wrong half the time. I don't remember which is which, So it's a process. But anyways, back to dash cam testing, having a great weekend. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Thanks so much for tuning in. And yeah, more videos to come. And I guess I will see you guys soon. Bye-bye.